and welcome to another podcast episode here at The Wealthy Ironworker. Now, on today's podcast episode, why you should always pursue excellence, or if you will, the pursuit of excellence, I want to just lay one or two ground points out before you get into it. Number one, I briefly touch on it from a family perspective. And it certainly we typically think that, okay, from a hobby or career perspective, we should pursue excellence. And I make the case here, right? But as you're listening, understand that this is also applicable to how you interact and what you do with your family. As a matter of fact, I may, down the line, decide to record another podcast episode taking this principle and directly attributing it to the family. But it has positive ramifications and connotations for your family. Nonetheless, I want you to consider and think about how you can take the pursuit of excellence and why you should always pursue excellence. Use it in your own life to make things better, not just for you, but for everyone around you. So, grab a chair, come on in the studio, let's listen up. And when we're talking about this topic here on the podcast, which is the pursuits, or why you should always pursue excellence. You could call it the pursuit of excellence if you want to, but why you should always pursue excellence. And as we dive into some of the reasons why this happens to be, I wanted to tell you a few things up front on the website and ahead of the podcast episode on what it's going to look like. Now, if you go over to the website, you'll find this underneath what I have called the Wealth Series. The why you should always pursue excellence, because there's a lot of people. I wrote this maybe about 4 years ago now, I think, and I've updated it. I need to update it again as I was looking at it. But there's a theme, if you will. I'm noticing a theme that is taking place, and when we start getting into these reasons of why you should pursue excellence, there's a lot of people who, when they look at various things, they look at things that they're doing, they look at things that they're interested in, whatever, the pursuit of excellence falls by the wayside. And the reason why this is part of the Wealth Series is twofold. Number one, we here like to challenge what you think it makes or constitutes wealth as a whole, okay? And number two, there's if you do pursue excellence, number one, it's going to make your life better, right? There's going to be an achievement on your end that's going to be very fulfilling. And number two, it's going to be very fulfilling for everyone around you that's, in your orbit, if you will. And so when we start talking about this pursuit of excellence, if you want to, follow along on the website for substantive articles, which is where this actually this podcast is coming from, you can go on over there. So as we dive in here, I want you to keep an open mind on what this looks like and why you should take it, internalize it, think about it in your own life, in your own mind, and what you can do to actually take it and implement it in your own life. So reasons why that I think, here on the podcast, that you, the listener or watcher, depending on where you're consuming your content from, should pursue excellence. Number one, because you can. Quite simply put, because you can. And should. Let me make sure I say that. Because you can and you should. Now, when you think about whatever it is you're doing, you're exchanging, and we've said this multiple times on this podcast, and it will not be the last time you hear this, but what is it effectively what you're doing is you're exchanging your time that you cannot get back for whatever it is you're doing. In this case, we're talking about, just everything in general, because we're very broad brushing in our application here, very sweeping. But this idea of why you should pursue excellence is whatever it is you're doing, you are exchanging your time that you cannot get back. So in that regard, then, you owe it to yourself as somebody who is giving up your time in exchange for whatever it is you're doing, then you should be pursuing excellence. It's because you can and you should. Now think about it like this. If in a future podcast episode, we're going to talk, I've got one It's an article form right now, and I'll probably drop it sometime this year. But it's actually on interests and hobbies, because there's a lot of people who get the two confused. There's a lot of people who think that, okay, well, just because I'm interested in something, all right, that makes it a hobby of mine. And that's emphatically not true. The reality is that you could be interested in a fair amount, but you really only have enough time to put into 4 or 5 hobbies. And I would say, to be really good, probably 2 or 3 at the most. I'll give you 4 or 5, but let's talk about 2 or 3. The same is actually attributable to friends. Your time that you have, it takes enormous amounts of time to actually make and maintain really good friendships. I don't mean surface level. I mean really deep friendships. Those that I've heard some people call them, they're not 9 p.m. friends, they're 3 a.m. friends. You call them, the world's melting down, and in the background you can hear them getting dressed, getting ready to come over and sit with you or help you out with whatever it is. Most men don't have a single 3 a.m. friend, if you will. And it takes time to pour into that. It's the same thing. It takes time. So when we, kind of separate interest and hobbies out, right? You really only have enough time. So, but people get them confused. And when people get them confused, we're just sitting here dabbling. We're putting our toes in the water, testing the temperature out, seeing how things are. And we're just, it's an interest. It's an interest. It's the same thing with our life. When we extract that principle out, and we look at what it is that we're doing, in what we're doing in life, we're just meandering on through. We're not setting goals. We're not looking to achieve anything. I'm just on autopilot day in, day out. I get up in the morning, I do my routine. Your routine looks similar or different depending on your circumstances and where you live, etc. You come home. You drive home, you get home, many of us, we don't even remember the drive home, right? We're so much on autopilot that we think we just check out. Our mind wanders, we check out, we get home, we're like, man, I got home and I don't even remember the drive, only to go to bed, get up in the morning and do it again. And in that day, was there any thought about goals and achievement and processes? And was I excellent at what I did today, whether it's work or whether it's, hobbies or whatever? No. And one of the reasons among many that we're going to focus here is because people aren't thinking about it. They're not thinking, okay, well, I should pursue excellence for everything that I am and for everything that it's worth. And that's what I'm saying. Whatever it is you're doing, all right? Whatever it is you're doing, it's because you can and you should. And if you're not, let's think about your daily routine. When you're going to work, are you consuming podcasts? Are you listening to anything? Are you allowing your mind to wander in a good direction, not in a negative one? Capture and put that thing, put blinders on it and say, okay, I want to actually focus on this. Whatever you're doing, whatever it happens to be, you should be pursuing excellence because you can and because you should. You owe it to yourself and the time that you are sacrificing away to do the best that you can for whatever it is that you're doing. All right? All right. That's reason number 1, because you can and should. Number 2, because you want to excel at something. There's a lot of people who will sit and look at other people who are achieving something. In our country today, it certainly seems like business and let's say sports stars happen to be the ones that we, for one reason or the other, they're the pinnacle, or those are the ones that we look at. Well, they pursued excellence, and a lot of other people will look at them and say, yeah, that looks good, but, and then they insert whatever it happens to be that's holding them down, that's holding them back. And rather, instead of saying, okay, well, maybe I don't want to be a sports star, maybe I don't want to open a company, Maybe I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, whatever you're comparing yourself to inadvertently. But maybe instead you're going, okay, well, what I want to do then is I want to be the best iron worker. I want to be the best electrician. I want to be the best pipe fitter. I want to be the best foreman. I want to be the best superintendent. I want to be the best project manager. I want to be the best steward. I want to be the best father and the best mother that I possibly could be. I want to be whatever it is that I'm doing. Maybe I want to do what I'm doing better. Now we're talking about professions or who you are. Let's talk about hobbies, for example. Maybe we need to look at our hobbies and of course not confuse our hobbies and interests, right? But say I want to be the best, and this is where we get into it, right? I want to be the best golfer. Guys love to golf, or I want to be the best hunter or whatever your hobbies are. I want to be the best at whatever I am. Well, are you pursuing excellence? What does it look like, and how do you pursue excellence? Well, if you're not establishing goals and things that you can basically evaluate yourself on and see how your progress is, right? It's the same thing with losing weight. If I sit here and say to you, well, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay, well, that's very ambiguous. But then if I said I want to lose weight, then I say I want to lose 50 pounds. And then I said to you, I want to lose 50 pounds by September. Okay, now we have an actionable goal. Now I'm in the realm of weight loss. As ludicrous as it sounds, I'm telling you I want to lose weight, and I want to do it within this linear progression from, let's say March to September. Now I'm pursuing excellence, or I'm starting down that path. It's the same thing with your hobbies. What do I need to work on first? If you're golfing, do I need to work on my short game, my long game, whatever it happens to be? And by the way, I don't play golf, so I don't know all the terminology. In your profession, if you're a pipe fitter, if you are an electrician, if you're an iron worker, if you're a project manager, superintendent, whatever, what does it look like to actually pursue excellence in your chosen craft? What does it look like? If you don't take the time to write it down, and if you don't take the time to have actionable goals, well, then how do you know you're getting better at whatever it is you're doing? You don't. That's the question, or that's the answer, excuse me. That's the reality. You don't know. And so we have to have a complete change of mindset to really look at what it is that we're doing, what we have going on, and how we can basically reset everything. And say, okay, well, reason number 2, because I want to excel at something, and it could be hobbies, it could be my career, whatever. What does it look like? And are there other people who I believe have pursued excellence in this endeavor that I could glean from, that I could learn from, that I could run with and help make me insert a better golfer, or, a better foreman, a better superintendent, project manager, electrician, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What am I doing? I want to excel at something, so I need to figure out how to do that and then use that to propel me forward. And so a real quick caveat for you parents, by the way. We often confuse interests and hobbies. And I think this is to the detriment of our children and, by extension, us. And let me explain what I mean. We confuse hobbies and interest. And so we say, okay, well, we've got a few different interests in mind here. And your soccer moms, right? I mean, it's a broad brush term, but that's the parents who their weekends are spoken for, and even their evenings are spoken for, if you want the truth. And they're just busy doing all this stuff. They're plugged into all this stuff, and so they're spread out. And are they really getting good at one simple thing, or are they just completely inundated and, to some degree, having their childhood kind of stolen from them in a way, because they don't have time to be a kid? They're just their day is completely spoken for. Now, there are some people who are out there and you're like, okay, well, my kid's going to learn a language, and my kid's going to learn an instrument, and my kid's going to play a sport. If you have some form of intentionality behind it, yeah, okay, I guess. But for me, I think that what happens, and this is just from the power of observation, is I've seen so many parents pour so much into their kids and confuse interests and hobbies that the kids never really get good at or take an interest in one or two hobbies. And instead, everything is just so spread out. It's far more linear than say, okay, well, here's one or two hobbies that we're going to find. Maybe it's an instrument, right? Maybe it's, okay, well, let's talk about honing a musical instrument talent. Maybe it's guitar, maybe it's piano, whatever it happens to be. And then maybe where it's one physical activity, maybe. But so many of us pour so much time into our children's interests that I think that we miss the hobby building. And then, of course, the other unintended consequence happens to be, and I've seen this in so many of my friends' parents. You pour so much time into your kids' interests and not necessarily hobbies that you are it's unintended. Maybe it is intended. I'm not sure. But you are prioritizing your kids and everything that they're doing to the detriment of you and whatever hobbies that you may or may not have. And, if I may, the relationship with your spouse. I've seen this so many times, it's not even funny. People lose who they are in the pouring into of their kids, and it's not even very intentional. They think that is, but it's really not in that regard because of the interest and hobby confusion. And then we put on a back burner our relationship with our spouse, which should be the premier relationship. It should supersede that over your kids, because your spouse, again, I'm approaching marriage from we're going to be there forever, right? So you were there with me before the kids, and you're going to be there long time after the kids. I'm not saying we don't prioritize our kids. I'm saying we're very smart about how we prioritize our kids. And remember that interest and hobbies are not the same thing. And so when we peel this thing back a little bit, we go, okay, well, if we're pursuing excellence, and this is also in, raising our kids and being intentional about what we're doing, then what happens then is that we have positive ramifications, not just in our own life, but also in our kids. Okay. So reason number 2, of course, is to excel at something. And it could just very well be that the goal setting, et cetera, turns you into a better parent. That's nothing to shake a stick at or dismiss outright. In the realm of so few parents who are very intentional about raising kids, pursue excellence in raising kids. And I mean to the nth degree. Set goals. And I mean set them and set them and set them and track them and follow them and be take an interest in what they're doing so that you can help them develop their hobbies. You can test the waters, but don't spend too much time doing it, or you lose the effect. And instead of having a couple of good hobbies that they're really pouring and interested in, what happens is they have so few hobbies at all and a wide base of interest that they're dabbled in. They don't really know what they're interested in. They don't know what they're good at. Reason number 3 from the website is you never, ever know who's watching. Now, piggybacking off of the kids, your kids know these things. We think, and it's so funny because we forget that, we were once kids, is that your kids are sponges. They listen far more than we're comfortable admitting. They hear things, they see things, they absorb things, they absorb the positives and the negatives, right? They absorb the trauma that we bring to them. They absorb what we, our good habits, if you will. They absorb all of this. And so you never know who's watching. And in the case of parents, far too often we think our kids aren't watching, and they're watching way, way more than we are, than we remember from the time we're kids. That should be a wake-up call, right? When you prioritize goal setting and you're always pursuing excellence, you're telling your kids that you should also pursue excellence. But you're not just doing it from your words. You're also doing it from what you do. And that has far more reaching implications than say just from your words, because you send confusing messages if you're not following up on it. Even the word hypocrite comes to mind here. That's not what you want. What you want is to put into practice the pursuit of excellence, so that, because you never know who's watching, and your kids, you want them to follow along with you and also invest in, into this principle, the pursuit of excellence. From a career perspective, you never really know who's watching either. I have seen so many guys that out in the field, they're just going on to get on. They're there for a paycheck. They're not particularly caring about numerous things. And what ultimately ends up happening is that they think, okay, well, I'm just here, ho hum, or like Eeyore, and I'm not going to get a promotion, etc. And they just don't care. So they're not always pursuing excellence. They're not always doing whatever it is they're doing. They're not doing it to the best of their ability. So I'm not saying that you should work extra. I'm not saying that you should do more than what is required. I'm saying take what you're doing, okay, and do it to the absolute best skill that you've got. That's the pursuit of excellence. It's not doing more than what you're getting paid for. It's not, I'm not trying to get people to not quiet quit, which is a really stupid term anyway. It's a very pejorative one, which we'll deal with in a different podcast episode and in article form. I'm just saying that when you go to work, do the absolute best that you can for what you're paid for, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. And even if you sit here and say to me, I am not seeing the results that I want to see from the people, from, my employer or whatever, watch what will happen to you. Watch what will happen to you in your personal life. Now, I want your career to flourish, of course. And there's ample opportunity. And I think this is a good segue, right, into you should pursue it because people are watching. And the reason why is because there's ample opportunity to move up. There's ample opportunity to move up in the next decade when the baby boomers go, the latter half of them are retiring, and the projected shortage is 2 to 3 million. You're going to see ample opportunity for you to shine. So you never know who's looking. You never know who's watching. There's so many stories out there. At this point in my career, I've talked to hundreds of iron workers, electricians, pipe fitters, maintenance at different facilities that I've worked at, different end users, customers, etc. And I have heard story after story after story of people, or even read in various books, people who would say things like, yes, I have heard so many stories where people are like, yes, I was doing my job, just minding my business, keeping my head down, doing what I'm supposed to do it to the best of my ability. Somebody come up and recognized me, understood, acknowledged what I was doing, etc. Others, I've had other people who were just out in the field and someone's like, hey, have you thought about this position? I'm like, no, why? Like, because I think you'd be good at it. I have been observing you. I've seen the way you interact with people. You always pursue excellence. And because you always pursue excellence, things are very good and people naturally gravitate to you. There's a level of authenticity around you. There's an aura, if you will, around you that people naturally gravitate towards because you're not like everybody else, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I've heard that story one time, I've heard it a dozen. I've heard it so many times in so many different ways, in so many different settings to know that when I sit here and talk about the pursuit of excellence, despite, and this is really key, despite what you perceive is no one's watching or there's outright rejection, that happens too. You go to work, and you're doing whatever it is you're doing, and you're doing it to the best of your ability, and you think no one sees you. It's not true. It's not true. I know it feels that way, but I've heard far too many stories from people over the course of my career where people were doing because they were building integrity in them, and they were doing the best that they could do at whatever it is that they were doing, and thinking no one was noticing. And people, when you weren't expecting it, were coming up to them going, I was noticing that. I saw what you did. I saw how you've been working. And I want to tell you that you have a gift and I want to use it, and et cetera, carry on, our example to the nth degree. But what does it look like? Right? but you'll never have that conversation if you're not pursuing excellence. And here's the other thing that I would toss out before we go into some real world examples on, from the article. What would the company you're working for look like if just half, and I know I'm pretty lofty when I even just say half, but when half of the people that you work around decided, I'm going to pursue excellence in everything that I do, I'm going to do it to the best of the ability that I have. I want to be the best iron worker. I want to be the best pipe fitter. I want to be the best electrician. I want to be the best crane, whatever craft you're in. Are you a superintendent? Are you a project manager? What? And it doesn't even matter. This isn't even just applicable to those of us in the trades. It's also to everybody. What would your company look like if everybody, just half that you work around, decided, you know what? I'm gonna pursue excellence for all it's worth. We're not even just about the productivity. What about the atmosphere that you're creating? What does it look like then? What does it look like then? Are you attracting people, or is the laziness that's pervasive? Does it repel good people who are looking to advance, or people who are looking to really pour into their career, etc.? You have a tremendous ability. And lastly, before we get into real examples, I'll say this. I usually say this about men. I guess it's probably true about women too. But men don't really follow rules. They follow other men. And so if you are leading the charge in the desire to pursue excellence, what does that look like for other people around you? I have seen it time and time again where somebody recognizes that this guy is authentic, and then they follow along with that person because this person dared to actually pursue excellence in whatever they're doing. And it's infectious, just like the bad apple can be infectious. So where are you at? What are you thinking about? So we're going to round out this podcast episode with some real examples of people who are pursuing excellence. And it's very closely mirrored to another article that I have, which will turn into another podcast down the line, which is talent versus tenacity. Without taking too much thunder from that, there's a lot of people who rest in their talent when the tenacity to continually pursue excellence, if you will, always is superior to talent. It always overcomes talent all the time. And so the first one on the website is a guy named Brian Acton. Now, you probably don't know his name. All right, Brian Acton. Brian Acton went and applied to work at Facebook and Twitter, and he was rejected by both of those places. So he partners up with someone else and creates WhatsApp. Now, you probably heard of WhatsApp. WhatsApp is it's still a large. I think on my social media postings, I think WhatsApp has the second largest social media usage overall, like 2.7 billion. It's just behind Facebook. And I believe Facebook bought him. But he pursued excellence. Even though he faced rejection, right, from Facebook and Twitter, I'm going to reject hiring you. And then later on, I'm going to create this product, WhatsApp, that then gets scooped up by Facebook. And now, the guy's set for life. All because he pursued excellence despite the rejection, if you will. So it's very interesting to me. And I mentioned her name in the previous podcast episode, Behavior Not Circumstances, but J.K. Rowling. Now, most people, right, know J.K. Rowling is the author of the Harry Potter series, a very beloved franchise, and a probably enduring books of literature, right? In line with like Homer and the Odyssey. Like they're a pretty fantastic series. She's a very good writer. And I think that it's worth noting here that in line with pursuing excellence, she was, there was a time when she was on welfare and was, having a rough go of it. And if you believe this or not, she was actually rejected 12 times by publishers. 12 times. What's likely to be 12 different publishers. I would would love to have been a fly on the wall in the publisher's home when those books began to take off, and how they're probably they live in the land of regret. They live in the land of regret because 12 times those series, I mean, they become, the movies are fantastic. And the books are, of course, even better. Books are almost always, I've never read a book that wasn't better than the movie or its adaptation. She was rejected 12 times, but she pursued excellence. She wanted to be a writer. She believed in what she was doing, and she wanted to push that out there. So she continued to pursue excellence despite rejection. And this is the reason why real world examples that we have in the on the article and now on podcast form are so potent, because a lot of people get the wind knocked out of their sails when they face rejection. When you can pursue excellence in the face of rejection, now you've really got something going. And now you're further cementing that pursuit. All right. Number 3, Stephen King. Now, if you don't, let's be honest here. Everybody knows who Stephen King is. Okay. Stephen King. He is, the dude is a prolific writer. Now, what he writes might not be your genre, but we cannot deny he's successful. And Stephen King had 60 rejection letters. I remember reading one of them, I think it was while I was doing the research for this article, where some publisher or editor had given him his manuscript back and said, trim 10% out of this. Good luck. Like, okay, really? It's probably on the front end of his career, right? When he was publishing and writing and whatnot. 60 rejection letters. And yet I'm going to continually pursue excellence. And for all that I'm worth, I'm going to pursue excellence in the rejection. Now, no one can argue that he's a very well-established, successful writer, because he pursued, even in the face of rejection. And some other notable ones that I just listed their name on the article. Thomas Edison. The quote goes, I think the number is 1,000, might be 10,000. Hell, I don't know. But he says something like, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways not to make the light bulb. He was pursuing excellence in being an inventor, right? And another name that I had listed up here was Jewel, the artist. She lived in her vehicle at one time, and now she's mega successful. And I'm not saying that you should go full bore in the pursuit of your hobbies to the exclusion of your career. Remember, if you go back to episode where we talk about passion versus opportunity, it's bad advice to pursue your passions and forego opportunity. All I'm saying is I'm listing her as somebody who, in the face of rejection, pursued excellence. Pursue excellence in your hobbies. Don't get me wrong. And if they turn into a career, that's great for you. But it's not the reality for a lot of people. Be satisfied then in the hobby pursuit of excellence and just being the best that you can be and enjoying what you're doing. That's what I'm getting at. And from a career perspective, do and pour into whatever it is that you're doing and be the best. Be the best foreman that you can be. Be the best superintendent you can be. Be the best project manager that you can be. Be the best welding inspector. Be the best welder. Be the best fitter. Be the best electrician. Whatever your craft, or if you're in the white-collar world, whatever it is that you're doing, be the best at what you're doing. So that then you can sit here and say, or remember, I was also talking about parents. Be the best parent that you can be. Be the best partner that you can be. Always pursue excellence. And say, I have put everything that I could into whatever it is that I'm endeavoring to do. From a hobby, from a career, from a relational perspective, so that everybody else can benefit along with myself. And I am the best at what I could be. That is the pursuit of excellence. Why you should always pursue excellence. This has been The Wealthy Ironworker. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for your continued support. Spread the podcast episode to whoever you think would benefit, and however you think you can benefit. Drop me a line and let me know. Thanks for listening.